Okay, welcome to Power Pivots, the podcast where we explore the stories behind the fundamental career shifts and changes that have made all the difference. I'm your host, I go by Hatu, and today we're joined by
Nicole Dove. Hey, turn
Hey
up.
Nicole. Thank you so much for joining me.
I'm so happy to be here. I'm so happy to be
Thank
here.
you, thank
I
you.
love this podcast.
And
I love power. I love pivots. I'm here for it.
listen, and I will be remiss if I do not say that I am so thankful for everything that you've done for me throughout this whole journey. This would not have been started if you weren't the one to light a fire under my ass and tell me to really put the wheels in motion to do this. So I really appreciate you, and I'm excited to have you on.
Thanks for having me. You are more than welcome. Teamwork definitely makes the dream work.
Let's get it. Well, let's jump into it. I always like to start the show by asking people about their PowerPoints. PowerPoints are 3 words or phrases that you feel like fundamentally describe you as a person and just embody who you are. So for you, Nicole, what would you say your 3 PowerPoints are?
This is so funny because I actually posted this on Instagram and it actually was in
Ooh,
my bio for a hot second. So yeah, everybody's like, oh, my
okay.
pronouns are she, her, hers. And I was like, no,
Yeah.
my pronouns are winner, queen, and boss. So that's going to be my power
Okay.
pivot.
Okay. Winner, queen, and boss.
Yes,
Okay. You want to
boss with the
elaborate? Boss.
BAWSE.
Correct. So do you want to tell us a little bit about why you chose those 3 as your PowerPoints?
Yeah, so the interesting thing is Nicole actually translates to victory. The name means victorious one
Mm,
or winner, right? So I
okay.
definitely feel like that's just a big part of who I am. I love to win. I'm not shy about saying it. I mean, who doesn't?
Okay.
But like winning feels good.
Right.
Accomplishment feels good. Queen, it just means like I run my own thing, right? Like my life is
Okay.
mine and it goes in the direction I
Mhm.
point it in. And I'm the boss with the sauce. So, there
Okay.
you have it.
Oh, okay. All right. I think it's fairly accurate. I like those. I like those. Well, Nicole, they always say that the story is told in hindsight and hindsight is 2020. So if you could look back with your 2020 glasses, can you give us your hindsight story?
Yeah, so I am truly like the sum of my parents. It's crazy. And the older I get, the more I recognize how much I'm like them. So my
Mm,
mom is a retired banker. My dad is a musician. So my parents are complete polar opposites, right? Like the banker is very structured and like everything is scheduled and pulled together and organized, where the creative is very fly by the seat of the pants, just, flowing with the vibes. And so,
mhm.
interestingly enough, I kind of got a little bit of both. And that's kind of been evident throughout like my entire career. I started my career on Wall Street. I graduated from an HBCU, Clark Atlanta. I studied finance and
Okay.
accounting, had no idea what I wanted to do outside of working on Wall Street. Got there, hated it. So I started
Mm,
moving around doing different things, consulting. That still felt a little stuffy, though I learned a lot. And then I got into gaming and I was like, oh, I can go to work and have different color hair and show my tattoos and nobody cares. And I really started just liking the vibe of entertainment because I could just show up and express myself and still be taken seriously.
okay.
I've had a bunch of different jobs, traveled all over the world, building offices. Then I moved into cyber. And now I am head of security or director of security engineering at a really cool video game company. And yeah, here we are.
Okay. All right. Cool. You covered a lot there. And definitely want to dive into that. So it sounds like you've had a few different pivots, which I always love when guests are in that kind of situation.
Yeah.
If you want to highlight what you would consider the most impactful or influential for your career, I know that you spoke about going from finance to consulting and going from consulting into information security eventually, which is what you're doing right now and has really accelerated your career. I guess walk me through like the pivot and like why was it so important and how did you do it?
So the interesting thing is that the pivots were never like a thing that I was like, oh, I want to have this big career change. It didn't work like that.
Okay.
The first big
Okay.
pivot was when I moved from like the risk management consulting into doing what we call shoring, and that's building, staffing, and managing international centers of excellence. Interestingly enough, I wanted to get promoted. I knew I was ready for promotion. My managers knew I was pretty ready for promotion, but the powers that be just, it was just dragging. It was taking a long time. So there was a little frustration. I think it would have ultimately happened, but for some reason they just wanted me to wait. Well, while waiting, grinding, still showing up and showing out, there was another role that popped up that just looked super interesting. And I applied for. I got it, and I told the powers that be, like, hey, I'm taking this role. Interestingly enough, they then offered me the role they wanted me to wait for, but I decided to pass up on it.
Mm,
Yeah, isn't that something?
okay.
The sec
It is. It really is. And sorry to interrupt you there, but I think it's actually fascinating of being able to kind of leverage using something else to get what you want in
hmm
that regard. And I think sometimes folks think that it's done in a vindictive manner and that it is done maliciously or with malintent.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting that you were able to go find another role and come back. And it's not like you asked for a counter. You just let them know that you're leaving. And then all of a sudden, oh, okay, this is a good time for us to promote you and bring you to what you wanted originally.
Yeah, it's like if you don't want to lose the talent, do what you need to do to keep the talent. And for me,
Mm,
while the promotion they offered me paid quite a bit more than the role that I was going into, I didn't want to be on a team where I felt like I couldn't trust my leadership, right? Or they only
yeah.
wanted to promote me to compete, with someone else.
Right.
The second
Right.
bit was and I had a great time in that role. I'm actually really happy that I took it.
Hmm.
My next pivot was I worked on that team for years and we had built up a really great program. I had lived overseas for a while. Like we did some really cool stuff and we had kind of maxed out, right? To the industry percentage. We were at like 20% headcount overseas. We weren't going to do much more growth. And a
Yeah.
mentor of mine came to me and said, your boss came to me looking for a job. So you need to start looking for a job. And I was like, oh,
Mm.
okay, this team is about to get spun down. And
Oh wow.
so I was like, well, I don't want to do operations. I love, the risk thing. Like that's my thing, but I
Hmm.
want to learn something new. So what do I want to do? I don't know. So I just went to the job board at work and I typed in risk and a cybersecurity job was the first one that popped up.
Oh wow. Okay.
And that's literally why I'm here. I was
Wow.
not even hip to like everything that was happening in the industry, the talent shortage, the lack of representation. I was like, I got to pay
Hmm.
my mortgage. So
Right.
what are we going to do? But it actually
How we're
turned
gonna.
out to really be like one of the greatest things. And I'm pretty sure that was just nothing but God's hand directed me because I could have not planned it better myself
Right. Right. Oh, okay. That's interesting. It brings up something that's really important of like making sure to like keep your head on a swivel. Right.
all
I
the
think
time.
both of these examples that you've talked about have shown how you're always looking at what's next, right? Or looking at just the overlay of what's going on, right? Because it sounds like things were good in those roles, right? And you were just trying to see, like, okay, what do the next steps look like, or what's coming down the line? And that's what eventually led to you finding out, like, hey, your boss is thinking that this is going to be dissolved soon. Thankfully, you were having the conversation and had sought out a mentor who was able to like make you hip to that information and found what ultimately ended up being a great career path.
Yes, like first of all, a couple things. One, my performance was strong, right? Like
Hmm.
it's one thing to ask for a promotion or seek out promotion, but you're not doing the work that you need to do, right? Then nothing is justified at that point. And I don't want to ask for favors. The second
Right.
thing is also like knowing your worth, knowing your value, right?
Yep.
And just because I have my eye on this one thing, not being afraid to try something new. In my mind, I thought I was going to be in risk management consulting my entire career, and I was fine with that.
Hmm.
And my
Hmm.
then boss was like, if you don't try something different, how do you know that you're not going to like it, right? And
Hmm.
so, just keeping my head on a swivel, as you said, making sure my performance was strong, keeping an eye out for opportunities that made sense for me at the time, or just knowing what my strengths are and putting that one word into the search bar, like all of those
Right.
things collectively really helped.
Right. Right. And that leads into my next question, right? I think that a lot of times with these pivots, there are a lot of resources that folks use that they may not remember that they used or may not understand how critical or unknown they are to others, right? So as you're looking or as you were looking to make these shifts, what would you say were some important resources that helped you do that? Whether it was a network, whether there were different forums, whether different courses, how were you able to go into an area that was seemingly tangentially related to what you were doing before and be able to thrive?
Okay, big words. So the the very very first thing was being self-aware, right? Because a lot of the reasons that I was able to make these pivots into different areas was really being able to take a look at the skills that I had built up in the work that I was doing and how that thing would translate into another space, right? So moving into project management, coming out of risk management consulting or audit, I talked a lot in the interview about how running an audit was really like project management, right? And managing timelines and communications and stakeholders and relationships, right? So connecting the dots is super important because you want to walk in there confident. And then you also want to have a plan for the things that you don't have that they want, right? So I don't have this. Here's something a little similar, but here's what I'm going to do to close that gap. So really just being resourceful and leaving no stone unturned. And then the last part of the self-awareness piece is understanding what I bring as a non-traditional candidate that the average person that you're going to interview with does not have, right? Because now that becomes a little bit of the premium or the special sauce that you get from having someone like
Right.
me in this spot. Network is always like network equals net worth. I've had my managers pick up the phone and call recruiters or call people they know to say like, hey, Nicole is my star, tagged back to the strong performance. Like, I don't want to lose her,
Right.
but I know she's going to kick ass at this job, right? Having
Yeah.
people who are in positions to say, your boss is looking for a job. You may want to look for a job, right? So having those people who are in spaces and connected to the decision makers, so I know what the heck is going on. Now, when I moved into cyber, into tech, I didn't study technology, right? I took the basic, whatever courses they recommended on the syllabus back in college. But there is a thing called YouTube University, number one,
Mm-hmm.
right? I also went and took an executive certificate program online at Harvard, right? Like, let me just get the foundationals. Like, everybody wants to be so sophisticated and expertise. Honey, the thing that always matches us up in anything is just not having the foundationals right. And so
Right.
tapping into like those resources and talking to people who actually do the job was a huge bit for me. So it's people, right? It's self-awareness, it's network, and it's finding like, these short online courses. I actually wanted to go. Georgia Tech has a really good online master's degree program for like 10K. And my mom was like, don't
Mm-hmm.
go get another degree. She's like, you keep changing careers anyway. Like, what's the point, right? So balancing that out was a big piece of the transition. So
Yeah, no, that's actually really helpful. Like, I think everything that you mentioned there is so important. Like the transferable skills of being able to make those linkages. It's all about the linkages, to be honest with you. Whether it's transferable skills, whether it's the network that you're using from like previous boss to future boss, right? Or even like the knowledge gap as well, right? Like being able to understand, like, hey, this is what I've done before. It's similar to this, and being able to paint that picture. Has Power Pivots inspired you to reevaluate your career path? If so, look into Power Pivots Career Coaching. Whether you're interested in career discovery, job description dissection, or interview prep, I take a tailored approach to helping you understand your ultimate career goals and get closer to them. Interested? Fill out the interest form at the bottom of the show notes for your free 30-minute consultation. For any questions, email hatu@powerpivots.co. That's HATU@powerpivots.co. As always, pivot powerfully. So, I guess talk to me a little bit as someone who has been in this space for a while. Like, we hear so much about information security and cybersecurity. Like, just give me some insight from your perspective of why the space is so interesting right now and some of the things that we should kind of be looking at or looking forward to.
there is nothing we do. There are very few industries, if any, that are not leveraging and many times even relying on technology, right? I grocery shop online. I book doctor's appointments online. We're recording this podcast online. I can
For sure.
literally take my phone open my car door. I can start my car. Like, this is a whole new age, right? And when we think about what that means, it elevates the value of data, right? Data is being exfiltrated, it's being stolen, it's being sold, it's being encrypted, it's being held for ransom. And that's not only in the workspace, but in the personal space as well. And so now, so more than ever, we all have a duty and a responsibility to protect that, right? We're seeing power plants, being shut down, Colonial Pipeline,
Hmm.
right? Like, we're
Yep.
talking like we're taking companies and resources and utilities and hospitals like offline. The
Yeah.
impact of that can be fatal. And so when you think about that, it really presses upon us how important it is for us to be good stewards of technology and good stewards of sensitive data.
Yeah, no, I get it. Do you think that companies overall are at the point where they understand the importance of just how much they need to invest in this space, or are they getting there, or are they still like far off the mark? What do you think?
Some are and some aren't. I think it helps that we're starting to talk more about breaches. I think it helps
Hmm.
that breaches are starting to happen, or not even that they're happening more, we're talking about them more. I think we're in a new
Hmm.
age of ransomware where companies are being asked to pay tens of millions of dollars, right, to get their operations
Right.
back online. And so I think if companies are smart, they're definitely paying attention, but there are definitely some who feel like, oh, it'll never happen to me. And at this point, it's not if, it's when.
Yeah, yeah. And if that's an area that companies need to focus on or are focusing on, that eventually will trickle down to having to hire more folks in that space, right? So if there are folks who are listening to this who hear the importance or understand that importance of cybersecurity as the way that you've described it and are looking to take advantage of that new wave of technology or opportunities that will be available in technology, what would you suggest are some of the best ways to get into the industry or pivot in from experienced hires or folks who are maybe like just starting their careers? What are some words of advice you would give to them?
The first thing is just learn more about cyber in general. I don't mean become an expert, but there are different domains of cybersecurity. Just do a quick Google search and figure out like what each domain is. Read some job descriptions, like understand what the needs and the desired profile for someone in cybersecurity is. That way, you'll begin to do kind of that self awareness and reconciliation of skills exercise to
Hmm.
figure out, like, oh, I've probably got a good shot, or this is way out of my pay grade. Cybersecurity is
Right.
not all coding. I maybe have coded once in school, and baby, that was
Hmm.
it. I had no desire to go back. I
Okay.
think the challenge is I find so many young people that are like, I want to work in cyber. And what do you want to do? I want to be an analyst. So what does an analyst do? I don't know. I'm gonna need you to go and do a little bit more, right? So be
Right.
resourceful. Again, do that reconciliation of the skills that you have to the skills that they want to figure out, how to get into the industry. And you can come in as a cybersecurity project manager, right? Like, there are definitely opportunities for non-technical people to enter the space, but it's a space that is rapidly changing so much that we're all constantly learning.
Okay. Okay.
Another thing too is like joining different cyber communities, right? You got like women in security and privacy and diversity and executive women's forum. And like, there's so many places because honestly, like we talked about before with like the network and the mentorship, like those are the things that are really going to get your name spoken in the rooms, right? And that's
Correct.
exactly what you want.
Correct. Okay. Are there any kind of like certifications that people look upon favorably? I mean, obviously every company is going to be different, but are there like certifications that people can like strive to do even if they don't have those jobs that will better position them?
So I'm a little spicy when it comes to certifications. And here's why,
Okay.
because there's the thought of theory and then there's the thought of execution, right? It's like when you start a new job, you can go to like new hire training and learn all these things, but there's so much learning that's going to happen when you're in the job. Even with college, we go to school, we learn all this book
Right.
knowledge, and then we get to the job and it's just like our head explodes.
Right.
So I think there is something really, really powerful about experiencing things as opposed to just studying and getting a cert. Now, that doesn't mean that there are no certs that I recommend. I think a good foundational certification is the Security Plus certification. Cloud
Okay.
security is typically where across the entire industry we're seeing the most spend, the most investment.
Hmm.
So getting like, an AWS cloud practitioner or architect cert could be really good. However, I also like to encourage people to, again, be resourceful and start where you are. Like in whatever job that you have, you're leveraging technology. Maybe you create your own stretch assignment where you become a cybersecurity ambassador or create a security program, or a learning exercise or experience for that team, right? Like somebody who's done that is going to impress me way more than somebody with a certification, right? But somebody with both, that definitely changes the game.
Okay. All right. See that linkage, right?
Yeah,
It's a career shift, right? It's a pivot. It's not a leap,
that's right.
right? Or it doesn't have to be. And one is a lot easier to do than the
Yes.
other. You can ask my knees.
Yeah.
Ask my knees. Ask my knees. But yeah, that is definitely very, very helpful, right? Especially as someone who has hired a bunch of these folks and kind of looked at a bunch of profiles. I think that the hardest part a lot of times when people are going through the process and trying to pivot is like, how do I get my application drawn or noticed?
Hmm.
And it seems like one, you mentioned before, looking through job descriptions and seeing exactly what they want. And especially for something like this space, something that could be quantified. But two, even if you're not in this space, taking initiative, like doing things that are security focused or security centered for your team, because like I said, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
Right. So just showing that interest is definitely very helpful.
Yeah.
I know that you have varied interests and varied other engagements that you participate in outside of work that are geared towards cybersecurity, right? Whether it's teaching, whether they're e-learning courses, things of that nature. How have you been able to embark on some of those engagements? And then I guess how crucial was you having pivoted to the space in being able to make that another stream of profile uplifting or income
Yeah.
or things of that?
So I promise you, the more I sit and talk to you, how to, the more I realize like how much my life is just like slip and fall into things because I don't plan
Okay.
any of this.
Okay. Yeah.
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 So the crazy part about the whole speaking thing was when it was a company I was working for, and they had asked me to participate in like this panel for like diversity and some program they
Mhm.
were doing. And I really did really, really well. There
Yeah.
was great engagement and like interest from the audience. And they kept asking me to come back and do more and more. And so I said
Mhm.
that to myself. I said, self, if this company is trusting me to represent them, I must be doing a good job. So why can't I represent myself and my thoughts and my opinions in the same manner? And so
Mhm.
that's when I decided to toss my hand out at speaking. And it took a few years to like really build up the profile in the company. But about year five, year six, that's when things like really, really took off. And then everything
Okay.
else that I've done has really just been kind of like a remix or repurposing of speaking, right? So
Okay.
my podcast is Urban Girl Corporate World. That was
Yep.
really about being kind of like a calling card for the speaking engagements.
Right.
And then that translated into building courses for LinkedIn, right? Because I had
Right.
built up this audience. And then there were a lot of things that I had learned the hard way throughout my career when I started talking to some of the deans at my alma mater. We decided to, have a project where I actually built this curriculum for the students. So everything just kind of all connected, but it worked out
Right.
really well. How the pivot helped is a lot of the talks that I used to do used to be based on like performance or DE&I, but coming into a much more niche space of cybersecurity is way
Right.
more profitable, way more successful. So it definitely helped with the uplift.
Okay. Okay. All right. So what I'm getting from that is really the more niche you can make yourself, right? And the more exclusive your content comes off as is like the best way to be able to make sure that folks are interested in booking you, right? And then you're able to uplift the profile of some of the stuff that you're doing outside of work
That's
to be
right.
able to use that. Okay. All right. That's definitely something that's very interesting because I think, unfortunately, it seems like a lot of times that folks get stuck in thinking that whatever they're doing for W 2
Mhm.
or their major source of income is all the money that they can make, right?
Yeah.
And I know that you're a very, very busy person, right? But we've talked before about your aggressive list making, right? And like checking calendars of every day of like how you're making your list to make sure that you're getting your to-do list done. But I think that just want to know a little bit about how you manage your time through all these things, because you do a lot.
Bruh.
I've heard you talk about the stuff
Bruh.
that you do. You do a lot. So how do you manage all of that to make sure, like you said, performance is key, that you're delivering well on all those different aspects?
Yeah. Low key, I be doing the most. And
Yeah.
I've actually had to get it wrong. And here's why getting it wrong is okay. So I started my company in 2015 and it didn't really hit until like 2021. So when you've been
Okay.
grinding for 6 years and then everything like pops off, you're like, oh, yes, I'm going to do everything. And then
Hmm.
by the end of that year, I was like, oh, okay, it's cool, it's cool. And then 2022
Yeah.
came and it kept going even bigger.
Yeah.
And I was just, by the end of 2022, I was burnt out. I was tapped
Mm.
out. And so I realized, like, okay, I've hit my max. And so there's always this adjustment. And so now
Yeah.
my new adjustment for 23 is I'm being more, number one, intentional about what I commit to. And
Hmm.
secondly, as I'm like committing to things, I'm spacing them out, right? I
Okay.
don't take on any my company projects January and February. I don't take on
Okay.
anything during the summer. And everything that I'm doing, I have literally like spaced out all the way through October. So that way I'm just
Okay.
not overwhelmed. So that's kind of the macro level. The micro level is people talk about balance. I don't even know if there's such a thing as balance as much as there is prioritization. So that's where the
Okay.
list comes in. Like, what are the things that I need to get done? I'm blocking time on my calendar for heads down work and other things, right? Holding myself accountable and just adjusting as I see fit and giving myself grace because I don't get it right every time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
constant exercise.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think that's helpful, right? Of just noticing burnout is very real,
Hmm.
right? And it's harder to come out of than the planning that it takes to avoid it, right? So I'm glad that you set the boundaries after having that experience.
Yeah.
And would your advice be more so focused on, because obviously you notice that the gotta catch them all aspect is not the best way to
Not the
go.
move.
Do you set like goals for yourself of like, I want to be able to have revenue of X and cut it off after that, or I want to be able to do as much as I can within this time constraints and use that? Like, what is the best way that you think to balance that out?
It all depends on what you want, right? So for me, my goal with the speaking was like, ultimately, this is something I want to do. Like, this is my retirement
Mm,
plan. Like, when I'm tired of
okay.
working in corporate, I don't think as much as I aspire to be a woman of leisure, I will be bored if I sit at home and do nothing. And
Yeah.
so it's like, how do I turn my passion into a career, right? Or how can I just
Hmm.
have fun making money? And so for me,
Yeah.
I had literally sat down and like calculated like what my expenses are and like, okay, if I want to live a life at this level, X is the number that I need to make. I
Right.
divided that number up by 12 and I was like, okay, if I do a speaking engagement every month and charge this, then I can make this, right? And
Right.
maybe I did a lot of free stuff. So I didn't necessarily book them all paid. Actually, that year I booked 13 instead of 12. 12 was the
Hmm.
goal. I booked
Okay.
13. So no, I don't stop when I hit the goal. And then sometimes the goal shifts to be less about bookings and then it becomes more financial. Like, okay, I want to make X amount, or I'm starting to book now, right? I want to get my pricing strategy together. Then the next year may be, okay,
Right.
I made X last year. I want to make 3X this year.
Yeah.
This year's strategy is more about I want to make more and work less. And I want to be more
Okay.
selective about the things that I choose to take on and create some time for myself and not burn out. So it always
Right.
changes. It just depends on where you are in that journey.
Yeah. Just that optimization. That optimization.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely get it. I definitely get it. Well, what advice looking back pre pivot would you give yourself? right?
Hmm.
And in that same token, post pivot, which I guess is like right now, what advice do you constantly give yourself to be able to keep on going?
Yeah. Pre pivot, I would have encouraged myself to be more open, right? I was on a
Mm,
one track path, and had I decided to stick to that path, my life would be nowhere what it is now. So definitely be more open. As I look at where I am now, the advice that I would actually give myself is to actually think bigger, right? Like,
okay.
I think pretty damn big,
Pretty
right?
big, yeah.
I think
Yeah.
pretty big. And what I notice is like, you work, you have a goal, you meet the goal. And by the time you get to the goal, you're like, eh, you know,
Yeah,
you know what I
yeah.
mean? But it's like, as I
Hmm.
start to think about, okay, what's next? Like, challenge yourself to think 10x of
Yeah,
what the current goal is, because we limit ourselves so much.
yeah.
And I think we often surprise ourselves with what we can accomplish.
I love that. Dream big, think big, but put the motion into it, right? The
Yeah.
action that be planned out to be able to get to those big dreams.
Yes.
Right. So for you, Nicole, what would you say is next? Like, what are you excited about? I know you got something to promote.
I got a whole bunch of damn stuff. Too much.
Exactly.
So
Too much. Let's talk
let's
about it.
get into it. So I am dropping two LinkedIn courses, two additional
Okay.
LinkedIn courses. I have two. I'm going to drop two more later this year. One on cybersecurity, on ransomware, and another on performance excellence in the workplace. Everybody wants to get promoted. Everybody
Okay.
wants to shine, but we got to do the work. So what
True.
does that look like? So I'm
Yep.
happy to break that down. I'm also working on some more podcast projects, specifically
Okay.
partnerships. So Urban Girl Corporate World is launching podcasting as a service this year. So we've got some
Mm.
exciting podcast partnerships with different organizations that are near and dear to me that we're working on. And then I'm learning how to fly planes. So I'm trying to become Captain Nikki. You know what I'm saying? I'm
Okay.
trying to pull up to the
Okay.
office and get me.
Oh my gosh. I hope they have a runway at the office
I
for
hope so
you.
too. I'm gonna be right in the quad trying to land.
If you fly in one day, I'm going home. I'm going to be like, this is too much. I'm going home. I'm like, this is too much.
Yes.
I must have woken up on the wrong side of the bed. This must be a dream.
Man,
But
I'm just
no, on a
saying.
serious note, that's awesome though.
I'm so
That's
excited
awesome.
about that. It is amazingly scary. It is uncomfortable. It is outside of my comfort zone. But again, this is
Hmm.
like think bigger. I never thought I would fly a plane. But like, you know
Yeah.
what? Hell, why not?
Why not? Why
Why
not?
not?
Exactly. Dream big
That's right.
and then double that
And
dream
then turn up.
and then turn up. Well, what would you say are, on a last note, some parting words of wisdom that you would give folks? And if you want to center it around career pivots,
Yeah.
just overall when things are going well, but just making sure that you're being cognizant of your surroundings, or if you want to do it advice towards like information security or outside engagements
Yeah.
based on what you're doing, what would you give as parting words of wisdom?
There is a significant talent shortage in cybersecurity, right? Like,
Okay.
I think there are over 3 million open jobs in cyber. So we
Oh
need
God.
talent. And so, whatever you can do to figure out how to position yourself for one of those opportunities, you need to do it. And I think we talked a lot how to earlier in the episode about the strategy that I used. And I think it's obvious that it works. So don't be afraid
Mhm.
to rinse and repeat. The second thing is if you have a dream, if there's something that you're good at, there's something that you want to do, go for it, right? Your nine to
Yeah.
five is not it. Like, it's great, it's
Mhm.
good, but you have much more capacity. Most millionaires have multiple streams of income. So if acquiring wealth is something that you want to do, this is a good part of the journey to get there. And don't be
Right.
afraid to put in the work, right? Like, I started my company in 2015 and
Yeah.
it didn't pay until 2020. In 2020, I think I made $500, right? But like
Oh wow.
when
Yeah.
2021 and 2022 came into play, things shifted, but it wasn't an
Yeah.
overnight success. It was a long grind. So winners never quit, quitters never win.
And there we go. There we go. Well, there you have it, y'all. There you have it, y'all. Nicole, thank you so much for sharing all this with us.
Thanks for having me, Hatu.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you all for tuning in. Please remember to like and subscribe for more. Most important, pivot powerfully. Be well, y'all.